Hello, viewers, it's Josie. Welcome back to Eclectic Movie Reviews. And tomorrow's Valentine's Day. Because of that, I am going to give some romance movie recommendations. So the um first film I'm going to talk about is Chinese Odyssey 2002 from 2002, directed by Jeffrey Lau. Set in the Ming Dynasty of China, the story follows two pairs of siblings who fall in love. There's the local bully, Li Yilong, played by Tony Leung, and his sister, Phoenix, played by Vicky Zhao. And Fei Wang plays a princess named Wu Shuang, who also happens to be a talented trickster. And then one day, she runs away dressed up as a man, and her brother, the Emperor Zhang Di, goes searching for her. And then Tony Leung's character plays matchmaker for her sister, thinking Fei Wang, believing her to be a man, would be a good fit for Phoenix. But then King Bully and Wushang fall in love, and the same goes for Emperor Zhang and Phoenix. Bonkers hijinks ensue. It's a classic comedy of errors and mistaken identities. What a delight. This is available to watch on the Criterion Channel if you have it. You can also rent it for a few dollars, for like $1.99 or less on Fandango. I don't remember, but yeah. And the costuming and production design is genuinely great for a silly comedic movie like this. It's just like, if you want something light and fun, definitely watch it. Next up is Fire and Ice, from 1983, directed by Ralph Bakshi. This is an animated sword and sorcery tale set at the end of an ice age. A malevolent queen named Juliana and her son Necron are intent on ruling the world. Together, they cause destruction to the kind-hearted King Gerald's volcano citadel Firekeep. Part of the objective here is not only to defeat him, but also to set up an abduction of his gorgeous daughter, Princess Tigra, so that she can birth an heir for Necron. Juliana sends these odd subhuman monster creatures to go after Tigra. And then Tigra encounters Larn, the sole survivor of a village hit by the glacier disaster caused by Juliana and Necron. The two form a connection and survive the wilderness together. Tigra is kidnapped, and it is up to Larn to save her from the majestic Dark Wolf. It's a mix of retro trippiness and classical adventure. And I didn't see it, but I know a lot of people were disappointed, were not so happy with Lord of the Rings, War of the Rohirrim, and perhaps this is like what people who wanted good from that could get from here. And it's like a sort of like a this would pair well with Beastmaster, the Don Coscarelli film. And I think it's like Beastmaster meets Lord of the Rings, which makes sense since Ralph Bakshi did an animated Lord of the Rings. Next, and so that's what I have to say about Fire and Ice. It's available to watch on Tubi, YouTube, and Canopy. I watched it on Canopy. I would love to see this get a 4K release. Next up is The God of Cookery from 1996, directed by Stephen Chow and Li Liqi. Stephen Chow plays a hotshot chef with the same name as him, Stephen Chow. That's the character's name, too. And he's the most famous and well-respected chef in the world. People call him the God of Cookery. And then when an envious rival chef exposes him as a fraud, Stephen Chow loses his top chef position. His life is at an all-time low. Desperate, he seeks assistance from a street vendor woman named Turkey, played by Karen Mock, to compete against him and earn the God of Cookery title back. And what's hysterical is how the martial arts and cooking are blended. It's so unapologetically ridiculous, and it's the whole lead up to the competition. It just gets more ridiculous from there, but also sweet. So perfect for Valentine's Day, and yeah, I love the color palette and the editing, and that's uh that's that's what I yeah, so that's what I have to say about the God of Cookery. And that's available to watch on YouTube. And I have a Chinese Blu-ray that my brother lended me. I gotta give it back to him. So yeah, that's that. Next up is The Harvey Girls from 1946. Um, a musical directed by George Sidney. Set in the late 1800s, Susan Bradley, played by Judy Garland, travels westward to a town called Sandrock after seeing an advertisement for a mail order bride. Basically, there was a Lonely Hearts contact ad, and she communicated with this man via letters. And then on the train there, she befriends a group of women with the goal of opening up a Harvey House restaurant. And Harvey Houses, for those of you who don't know, were a chain of restaurants in uh, around that time, owned by women, uh, owned they were women owned, and I believe that they were invented to help. I think that they were created to help impoverished families, if I'm not mistaken. And so so Susan, Judy Garland's character, meets the guy from the ad in person, and he's a total douchebag, so their marriage is canceled. And then Susan decides to join the Harvey Girls and help them with their hospitality efforts. And then Judy Garland's character strikes up a romance with the local saloon owner named Ned Trent, John Hodiak. And it's a super fun, heartfelt, inspirational story of female empowerment. And it touches on an area of history that isn't discussed much in schools. And the ensemble cast is delightfully wonderful. Judy Garland, Virginia O'Brien, John Hodiak, as I said, Ray Bolger, so Wizard of Oz from the Wizard of Oz. Also, Angela Lansbury as a showgirl, Sid Charisse, Marjorie Main. It's underrated as far as like Technicolor musicals go. This is a good musical for people who may not be super into musicals because it's focused on being an ensemble character piece first. Harvey Girls is available to watch on HBO Max. Next up is The Knack and How to Get It from 1965, directed by Richard Lester. The story follows a dorky school teacher named Colin, played by Michael Crawford. One day, when dragging a brass bed into his apartment through the help of his roommate, Colin meets Nancy, played by Rita Tushingham, and he's immediately romantically gobsmacked by her. And then Colin is limited in sexual experience, and he wants to achieve the knack, way of successfully seducing women, or so to speak. Then Colin and Nancy end up forming a true connection. There is sexual tension, but Colin values Nancy for who she is, and she's not just a sex object. Colin seeks guidance from his womanizing buddy Tolan, played by Ray Brooks, and then Tolan tries to have Nancy to himself. Tolan's interactions with Nancy get into disturbing territory. And Richard Lester does a really good job at balancing the sweet with the disturbing, because while Tolan tries to force himself on Nancy, Colin is there for her. I'm sorry, The Knack and How to Get It does not deserve to have a 3.2 out of 5 average on Letterboxd. Like, okay, I mean, I understand how some modern viewers, if you will, may be put off by some of the touchy content it focuses on, so, especially in the second half, but I think for the time period it was done in a pretty tasteful way. And I actually talked about this movie, and I actually use the same notes as I did in the Piecing It Together podcast with David Rosen, when we were talking about Honora, I brought this up as a puzzle piece. And actually, and Sean Baker has actually seen this. I discovered this movie by looking at Sean Baker's Letterboxd, and he actually wrote in his review on Letterboxd, the rape sequence is incredibly progressive thinking, using humor to comment on gender roles, power play, consent, and manipulation. And I was explained David, and I discussed to David Rosen on piecing it together how the relationship between Tolan and Nancy and Colin remind me of Igor and Honora, with how like he thinks she's pretty, but he also likes her for who she is and doesn't like the abuse she's getting from guys. Next up, and the Knack and How to Get It, there's a great Kino Blu-ray. I don't know about its streaming availability. Let me check that right now. Oh, it's on Pluto TV. Oh, and it's on Prime. Great. So if you have a chance to watch it, please do. So that's A Knack and How to Get It. Next up is Maid of Salem from 1937, directed by Frank Lloyd. Set during the 1962 Salem witch trials, a kind-hearted woman named Barbara Clark, played by the great Claudette Colbert, and an adventurous man named Roger Coverman, played by Fred McMurray, have a love affair. Of course, this is deemed a scandalous relationship. Barbara is then accused of sorcery by a spiteful girl faking possession. Barbara is put on trial, and she and Roger have to fight to save their lives and their relationship. The film shows how during the Salem witch trials, puritanical authorities used the witch hunt as an excuse to punish women in the community that they had ill feelings against. And of course, this is parallel to Crucible, and in fact, some of the characters that from the Crucible are in this movie. Because, like, I think the Crucible, like, use fictitiously, of course, some names of real life people. And at the center of this film, though, is a beautiful love story of resilience between Claudette Colbert and Fred McMurray's characters. Of course, historical liberties are taken with regard to talking about history, but ironically enough, I actually think they work to the film's favor because I feel like they help show respect to the women, the way they do it. That's Maid of Salem. As of now, it's available to watch on the Criterion Channel. I don't know what else about its streaming availability, and yeah, I hope it gets some physical release soon because it's really, really good. It's really good, and yeah, more people should see it. It doesn't even have a lot of logs on Letterboxd, and that's what the rating is not particularly high from the logs, but who cares? And perhaps it'll go up when more people see it. So yeah, moving on to One Way or Another. From 1974 or 75. Different sites say conflicting dates. Directed by Sarah Gomez. This is a Cuban docufiction film set in Havana, post-Cuban Revolution, centered on the romance between a teacher named Yolanda and a bus factory worker named Mario. It's sort of an opposites attract situation with Mario and Yolanda. As Mario is a prototypical tough guy, Yolanda values independence. More specifically, while Mario is sort of a slave to work at the factory, Yolanda wants to improve matters for lower-class people by teaching the disenfranchised children of the slums in Havana. And that's this fiery energy is what draws Mario to her. And there's documentary footage of the city and neighborhood developments in Cuba with a heavy focus on the poor communities. Sarah Gomez was trying to argue through this film how just because a country went through a political revolution, it does not mean that all the problems are solved. By presenting the fictional Mario and Yolanda's relationship on screen, Gomez allegorically stresses how the only way a country's evolution could be successful is if race, sex, and gender are eliminated uh, as a union between Mario and Yolanda would indicate/imply. One way or another, it's available to watch on YouTube and the Criterion channel. Next up, this may be a bit of a stretch. Actually, maybe not. I'm going to talk about a childhood favorite of mine, and that's Rugrats in Paris from 2000. The film starts with Tommy Pickles' grandpa getting remarried, and this makes Chucky's dad, Chaz, reconsider searching for love again. And what's so funny, this is a Paramount picture, so, since obviously they have the IP, they make fun of the Godfather in the beginning, Angelica, they tends to be the Bob father, as they call it. And then she's like, I'll grant you a wish for a new mommy. I believe in the playground. So classic. And then, Tommy's dad, Stu, is assigned on a business trip to Reptar Land in Paris. Sorry, there's a train running. And the Rugrats hope that they can find a new mommy for Chucky there. And the Reptar Land manager, Coco, voiced by Susan Sarandon, pursues Chucky's dad for selfish material reasons, and the Rugrats have to stop the upcoming marriage between them. And then at Reptar Land, Chucky's dad befriends Coco's Japanese assistant Kira, who has a daughter, Kimmy, around their age, the Rugrats make friends with. And there's just so many great, memorable sequences here, like when Spike the dog meets the poodle. I forget the poodle's name, but they run through Paris together and they play Who Let the Dogs Out, a staple of every Nickelodeon movie at the time. And then also the whole the Reptar show. Reptar, he's no ordinary monster. And then here comes Chucky Chan. What else is in there? The plane sequence. Mom, they'll last forever. Oh my God, they'll make you tear up. And then, what else is in there? When the babies go to Ooey Gooey World, and it's so gross. Yeah, it's, like I said, it's a childhood favorite. What else can I say? Next up is Tuvalu from 1999, directed by Viet Helmer. This is an experimental, semi-silent narrative. I say semi-silent because there are some utterings of dialogue, but not a lot. The story is mostly told through visuals and gestures. A loner named Anton, played by Dennis Levant, helps his parents operate their worn-down bathhouse. Anton has bigger dreams of sailing the world, particularly to the island of Tuvalu. He has a childlike naivete to him, but before then, he must make sure that the bathhouse passes a major government inspection, and to keep his love Eva away from basically the film's villain Gregor. And then she too has a childlike innocence to her. She's absolutely adorable, but has a little more experience in the outside world. And yeah, it's such a this movie is so oddly unique and beautiful. It's like a flowing dream. It has both a classic cinema look and a 90s feel, if that makes sense. Swimming shots in the pool are so gorgeous. On Letterboxd, someone described it as Chaplin and Keaton mixed with Tati and Junette. That's a perfect description. There's also a lot of German expressionist influences. Vibes-wise, this would pair well with The Shape of Water, I think. What's also interesting about this movie is that it sort of has a commentary on the development of technology, because Anton, through Eva's help and others, tries to create new advanced bathhouse tech. Best of all, Tuvalu is a coming-of-age hero's journey about two people breaking free from restrictions into freedom. It's such a delight. It's so magically heartfelt. Tuvalu is available to watch on YouTube and Canopy. This would be so deserving of a Criterion release. And then last but not least, we have another animated film called West and Soda from 1965, directed by Bruno Bozzetto, who also directed Allegro non troppo, which is a really great sort of parody of Fantasia. So West and Soda is an absurdist, adult-oriented animated parody of Westerns. And what's greatly funny is that Bruno Bozzetto called this the first spaghetti Western. Like, in many classic Westerns, the main character is sort of a drifter, stranger, who stumbles upon a town he's never been to before. Interestingly, despite this being a parody, our protagonist here, Johnny, is not traditionally masculine by Western movie standards. Rather than being a super duper macho, he's actually sort of timid. This is not to say that he doesn't have any deal of strength, because he does. He just doesn't actively show off as much, if you will. The character that is macho, or at least tries to be, is the villain, simply called Cattivissimo. He has two partners in crime, named Ursus and Slim. Cattivissimo continuously harasses the beautiful and sweet local Lady Clementine into marrying him. Of course, she's not interested. In addition to wanting Clementine for himself, Cattivissimo is hungry for land, money, and power, particularly that of Clementine's. When we meet her, she's surprisingly given some agency, for she independently operates a farm, and she's super dedicated to it. What's funny is that the animals talk, and there's a dog that's a drinker. There's a cow that smokes. Johnny sort of helps her at the farm, and they begin to fall in love, and they're cute. Of course, this all leads to an inevitable showdown between Johnny Cattivissimo and his henchmen. Not only is this movie an awesome spoof of Westerns, but it also has socio-political commentary about greediness for land and power. West and Soda is currently available to watch on YouTube, both the original and Italian and English dub versions. If I were to program a festival focused on Westerns, I would play Alias Jesse James, Cat Ballou, and Hot Lead and Cold Feet, and this movie, West and Soda. New Beverly, if you're listening, keep that in mind. So that will do it for my romance recommendations for February 2025. But of course, these romances can be watched any time of the year. I hope you all have a happy Valentine's Day. And if you're watching this post-Valentine's Day, I hope you've had a happy Valentine's Day. But regardless if it's Valentine's Day or not, be loving to everybody. Thank you so much. Goodbye for now.